All eyes are going to be on Notre Dame quarterback Sam Hartman when the Irish take the field against Louisville on Saturday. Is it going to be a repeat of last year's game when he was the quarterback at Wake Forest and had the worst performance of his career? Or will he be out for revenge and dominate? It's coming up next.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up? Welcome into another edition of Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. Today is Friday, October 6th, so happy Friday to you, and thank you for making this your first listen of the day. My name is Wojciak, and I'm the host. I graduated from Notre Dame in 2018 and have been covering college football as a producer ever since, first for ESPN and now at Fox Sports. And this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. We're doing things a little different on today's show, okay? It's going to be a 2-for-1 Friday special. First, I'm going to answer some mailbag questions because we missed the Friday mailbag last week and I wanted to bring it back. Then at the end, I'm going to have a guest on, Louisville insider Ty Spalding, who's the owner and manager of Louisville's outlet for the Rivals Network. So there's a lot we need to get to, and we begin with our first question. And when I say question, I mean questions because I got a bunch of these that were all sort of asking about the same thing. So I'll go through them here. First one, Wojciak Hennessy. Hey, Woj, Wojciak here, friend of the program. How does Sam Hartman react to his first visit back to LNN Federal Credit Union Stadium after last year's 6-turnover performance? Is he still shell-shocked or is he out for revenge? Drick for Heisman asks, what do you expect to see from Sam Hartman with both wide receivers back? Over under 250 yards and over under 2.5 passing touchdowns. And then at Nathan Coleman 45 wanted me to be a lot more specific. He asked, what will be Sam Hartman's final stat line? So a lot of people are wondering how Sam Hartman is going to do in his first game back at Louisville since he literally had the worst game of his career when he was there last season, and it's one of the worst performances any quarterback has ever had. 6 turnovers in one quarter, 3 fumbles, 3 interceptions. It was really, really bad. And we've talked about it a lot so far this week as we've been previewing this Louisville game. And frankly, I'll cut right to the chase. I think he's going to be out for revenge, and I think he's going to absolutely dominate in this game. I think he's going to have a huge game, like maybe the best game of the season, so long as the Notre Dame offensive line can protect him. And I got to give Drick for Heisman a shout out here. He was pretty close to the FanDuel line. He asked if he would have over under 250 yards and over under 2.5 passing touchdowns. On FanDuel, the props are 245.5 passing yards and 1.5 passing touchdowns for Sam Hartman. So if he was able to get the over on both those, that's a pretty good game, but I think it's going to be much better than that because I think he's been thinking about this game ever since it happened. It's been on his mind, and he's probably been dying for the moment to sort of wash that away because a game like that doesn't just go away. You can't just like bounce back and play another game and just forget about it. That's going to stick with you for a really long time, especially considering the fact that Wake Forest was coming into that game as a top 10 team. They were 6-1. That team was riding high. He was having a great start to the season, and then it just really all went south after that trip to Louisville. Notre Dame is coming into this game as the 10th ranked team in the country. They've got a lot of momentum coming off that win against Duke. So it's a somewhat similar position for Sam Hartman coming into this game, but there's going to be a lot more eyeballs on this one, given the fact that, 1, he plays for Notre Dame now, and 2, it's the ABC primetime game. It's going to be a sold-out crowd, all of that. It's going to be a huge game. And what better way for Sam Hartman to make a statement to the Louisville fans and really the rest of the college football world that he's that dude. He showed it last week on the final drive against Duke as he led Notre Dame 95 yards down the field for the game-winning touchdown. But this game, if he comes out and dominates, kind of like he did against Navy in the season opener, I think a lot of people would look at Sam Hartman again like, okay, this dude is one of the very best players in all of college football. So I'm expecting big things from him. Louisville is also 122nd in the country in explosive pass plays against, and we know Hartman loves the deep ball. These past 2 games for Notre Dame's offense, they have not really had that many explosive plays, and that showed up on the scoreboard. Notre Dame only has 35 points over the past 2 games. They haven't had the explosive plays, and it has been a struggle for the Notre Dame offense. Now, granted, they went up against Duke and Ohio State, two of the top 10 best defenses in the country. Louisville is not nearly that level. So he's going to be playing against inferior competition this week, at least compared to what he played the last 2 weeks. And I think he's due for a huge game. He's really talented. And as Jamie Uyeyama from Irish Sports Daily pointed out in his scouting report, Louisville gave up a combined 8.6 yards per attempt against Indiana, Boston College, and Georgia Tech. 3 Power 5 teams with significantly worse quarterbacks than Sam Hartman. Now, he can't do it all by himself. He's going to need the receivers to step up, and I expect them to do that in this one. Having Jaden Thomas, wide receiver 1 back, is huge for this, and adding Jaden Greathouse back in the rotation as well will be very important for this Notre Dame offense. They really missed them last week against Duke, and it certainly showed. So having more receivers back in the mix, playing against a secondary that is susceptible to giving up the big play, and just Hartman's motivation going into this game makes me believe that he's ready to have an absolutely huge game, and Notre Dame really needs it because the defense has been playing so well in recent weeks. If the offense gets things going again, and they're playing at the level they did at the beginning of the season, then this Notre Dame team can be really scary for the second half of the season. All right. Next question comes from @BronTiger, who has a question about the quarterbacks, but it's a little different. Bron Tiger says, swap quarterbacks. What's the line? This is a really good question. I think if Sam Hartman was the quarterback at Louisville and Jack Plummer was the quarterback at Notre Dame going into this one, I think Louisville would be favored by at least 3.5, which is a huge swing for one player. I admit that. But that's just how important Sam Hartman is to any team that he plays on. And frankly, that's how much better I think Sam Hartman is than Jack Plummer. And I also think that if Sam Hartman were the quarterback at Louisville, like their skill players on the outside, they're actually more suited to what Hartman likes to do. He likes to throw the ball deep. He likes to throw back shoulder fades. And having a guy like Jamari Thrash to throw to who is faster than anyone Notre Dame has at wide receiver right now, or at the very least, if he's not the fastest in a 40-yard dash, he's the fastest on the field for sure. So having a guy like that would make him really, really lethal for a Louisville offense. And I just think that like what Jack Plummer struggles with, throwing against the blitz and things like that, and he's best at play action. Notre Dame hasn't run a ton of play action this year, certainly not as much as I would have expected them to with Sam Hartman. I think it'd be a huge swing in the line, and Louisville would come into this one with a lot of confidence, and I think they'd be favored. But I'm thinking 3.5. Again, it's a huge swing, but I just think that's how different these quarterbacks are in this battle. All right, next one, @BSCherry83. What's the expected usage of Eli Raridan? So if you haven't heard, Notre Dame's tight end Eli Raridan is expected to return this week against Louisville, which honestly isn't that surprising that he's going to be eligible to play, but I'm just not really expecting him to be much of a factor in this game specifically or much of the season down the road. He's recovering from his second ACL tear in as many years, and frankly, he's just not 100% right now because he's been sort of gearing up all through camp and all season long to get to this point where he can even suit up and play on Saturdays. And now that Mitchell Evans looks like the next great Notre Dame tight end, plus he's got Holden Stays behind him, who already has 4 touchdowns this year, I don't really see a reason to force Eli Raridan on the field too much. I would prefer he gets action in 4 games, so you get him out there, you get him some reps, but limited action, and that way he can preserve a year of eligibility and he can maintain his red shirt this season. The good news is I'm expecting a lot from Jaden Thomas and Jaden Greathouse. 2 other guys who I just mentioned are returning from injury, and I think they will be much more important for Notre Dame and their offense in this game. What Eli Raridan has had to go through over the past couple of years is just a lot for any player to deal with, and I just think that Notre Dame is going to take it slow with him, and they should. All right, we've got a few more mailbag questions to get to, plus my conversation with Ty Spalding, and that's all coming up right after this. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. I used LinkedIn Jobs a couple years ago, and they made it easy to contact the hiring manager, learn more about the role, and eventually, I got the job. LinkedIn also makes it incredibly easy to create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs. All you have to do is add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. We all know hiring people can be time-consuming, but adding the right team member can be invaluable to your business, and LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier than ever. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, we've got a few more mailbag questions to get to, but first I wanted to remind you that if you're watching on YouTube, please like the video below and subscribe to the channel. Or if you're listening to the podcast, please rate the show 5 stars, leave a review, and of course, subscribe. All right, this next one comes from Wojciak Hennessy again. 2 questions from Wojciak in this one. Did Scott Martin ever recover from Kyle Kurik's assault on him in 2011? So, if you don't remember what he's referring to, he's talking about the Notre Dame-Louisville basketball game in South Bend way back in 2011 when Kyle Kurik, he was the white small forward on Louisville who could jump out of the gym, and he dunked all over Scott Martin. There's no other way around it, man. He put him on a poster, and it was one of the most ferocious in-game dunks I have seen at the college level, and he was just an unbelievable athlete. He was a great player, and honestly, for Scott's sake, I don't know if he's ever gotten over that. He probably never will, because when I think of Scott Martin, the first thing I think of is that dunk on him. And just as an aside, man, I really miss that era of Notre Dame and Louisville basketball because those games were so fun. I don't know if it was like a true rivalry in the sense of the word, but it always felt like when Louisville and Notre Dame played against each other in basketball, whether it be in South Bend or Louisville, those games always would go down to the wire. Usually they'd end up in overtime, and it was just a battle. I mean, there's the 5 overtime legendary game, the Garrick Sherman game in South Bend. I'm never going to forget that one. That was one of the most fun nights ever. I actually watched that game at my buddy's house with all Louisville fans, and we actually were about to give up on the game at the end of the second half when Louisville was up by 8 or whatever with like under 2 minutes to go, and then me and one other friend just randomly decided to stick in the room, and then when Notre Dame came all the way back and forced overtime, we were like running back, and I'm like, it's going to OT, and literally no one believed me. They thought I was lying, and they came back and watched the end of the game, so that was a lot of fun. And when I was living in Louisville, I got to go to a bunch of those Louisville and Notre Dame games at Louisville, and Louisville has a very hostile basketball crowd. It was the same way then. I was like 10 or 11 years old getting chirped at by Louisville fans, and I loved every second of it, man. It was a lot of fun, and just in recent years, really ever since Notre Dame went to the ACC, like they still play each other every year, but it just doesn't have the same juice that it used to have, and that's really unfortunate because it was one of my favorites. Okay, last mailbag question from Drew Brennan 77, and this is kind of a long one, so I'll just kind of go through it real quickly here, and then we'll get to the conversation with Ty Spalding. So Drew asks, being from Louisville, walk us through a really fun Louisville game weekend if you're in town for the game. Where do you go for dinner on Friday night? Where do you go afterwards if you want a few drinks? On Saturday, what's the best area to tailgate in? What's the scene like for tailgating? Is it going to bars or heading to tailgating lots? With it being a night game, where are you going for breakfast to get the day started on Saturday morning? And any other thoughts on a good weekend in Louisville? So, Drew, I have plenty of thoughts about a good weekend in Louisville, and this is a long question, so I'll just try to run through this here pretty quickly. I haven't been to a ton of Louisville games. Unfortunately, I am not going to be at this one. I'm really disappointed. Unfortunately for me, I get to pick one weekend in the fall where I'm off work and I don't have to work at all. And I picked the Notre Dame-Ohio State weekend, and I got to go to that, and it had the makings of an all-time weekend, and then it just wasn't, as I've been over before. So I'm going to be working the rest of the fall for my job at Fox, but hopefully if Notre Dame makes the college football playoff, maybe I can swing that, but I will not be at this game. But as for your questions, Drew, I would say the best tailgating spot is in the parking lot directly south of the stadium. You've got to walk underneath a bridge to get there, but it is a massive parking lot, and it's got good tailgates that seemingly go on forever. So I'd highly recommend going to that. For dinner in Louisville, if you want something fancy and you're willing to spend some money, go to Jeff Ruby's Steakhouse. It's downtown. It's one of the most popular restaurants in the city for sure. But if you want something cheaper, me and my friends love Frankfurt Avenue Beer Depot. They've got good wings, good barbecue, that kind of stuff, and just extremely cheap drinks. Like going from California, whenever I get the chance to go back home to Louisville and I get a Miller Lite for like $2.50, I'm like, God, I miss home. But that place is good food. It's cheap, very affordable. People are nice there. And for drinks, I've got to say Gersel's, which is a bar, or Tin Roof. It's these two bars that are basically right next to each other in this area called St. Matthews in Louisville. And I'm going to be honest, if you're a little bit older, that might not be the place for you, but I've got to say it because Gersel's especially has a ton of sentimental value. It was the main spot for me and my friends for years. Sadly, I think we've outgrown it a little bit, but there's plenty of cool bars in the St. Matthews area in downtown Louisville. Really, wherever you go, there's a bunch of great bars in Louisville. So I doubt you'll have a hard time finding a good place to get a drink. For breakfast, There's this little tiny diner called Wagner's Pharmacy that is literally right next to Churchill Downs, and Churchill Downs is not far from the football stadium, so you could kind of knock out both on a short drive. I would recommend going there. The food itself is like typical diner food. You're not going there for the food. You're going there to be able to walk to Churchill Downs right afterward, and that is an absolute must whenever you're in Louisville. It is just an unbelievable place, and I've been going to the Derby since I was like 14 years old. I go back every single year because it is the most fun weekend I have every single year, being able to reunite with a bunch of my old friends and just doing the whole Derby thing. It never misses. So if you ever get a chance to go, I could not recommend it more. It is always such a good time, and that's Louisville at its peak, especially that time of year. If you're going for an average weekend, I would say still make it to Churchill Downs so you can see it. Hit the restaurants I was telling you about, and as I'm doing this, I'm getting homesick. So I'm going to wrap up the mailbag now, and then I'm going to toss it to my conversation with Louisville insider Ty Spalding to further break down the game between Notre Dame and Louisville on Saturday night. College football season is here, and this season, the Locked On Podcast Network is kicking up our coverage with a new show called College Football Kickoff Live, which airs every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. College Football Kickoff Live will cover everything going on in the sport. He can go in-depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of college hosts covering their team every day. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time than now to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. All right, I'm joined now by Ty Spalding, the owner and publisher at CardinalSports.com for the Rivals Network. And before we dive into this matchup, Ty, if Brahms' return is the big picture headline, what have been the main storylines for Louisville on the field this season? Has it been the play of Jack Plummer, Jawar Jordan, Gelati? Feel free to take this any direction you want, really.
Yeah, the Bobby Petrino staple of offensive play callers, the mantra for the longest time has always been feed the studs. That's been a Petrino-style offense mantra, dating way back to when Bobby was here in, those 2006, 2007 years, where Louisville had it rolling. The offense, it was predicated on feed the studs, meaning get the ball to your best players early and often. And, Louisville has two of those guys on offense that you would qualify as studs. And Jawar Jordan in the backfield is one of them. He leads the ACC in rushing by over 100 yards. He's really, really good. He's experienced. He's between the tackles, but he can also, hit you with a home run threat. And then Jamari Thrash on the outside came over in the portal this offseason. Louisville beat out Auburn for him, and he is second in the ACC in receiving yards, and he's a game breaker type receiver as well. So when you talk about what's happened on the field, on the offensive side of the ball, it's really been about getting the ball to your best players and letting them make plays. At quarterback, Jack Plummer's it's been a roller coaster ride with him. He's looked really good at times. He's looked really bad at times. And to keep it black and white, when he has time to throw, he can make throws and he can throw the ball down the field really, really well. But if you pressure him, things go south quick. So that's the long and short on offense. And then on defense, Louisville has an edge rusher in Ashton Gelati that leads the country in quarterback pressures, and he also leads the conference in sacks with 5. He's a big time player. He's a guy that's been in the program now. He was developed in the program. He's been there, and he had a lot of big schools try to poach him in the offseason. We know how that goes with the transfer portal. He decided to stay at Louisville. He's having a really, really nice year. Also on defense, I think the secondary is a strength of Louisville's. Cameron Kelly at safety has been ACC defensive back of the week twice already. He's third in the conference in interceptions. He has a nose for the ball. They've got two veteran corners in Quincy Riley and Jarvis Brownlee, both players started a year ago and returned under Brom, and they're both really, really good cover corners on the outside. So Louisville has some players. They have some guys that they have a blend of transfers and guys that came back from a year ago. But like I said, it all starts when you talk about a Jeff Brom team. It all starts on the offensive side of the ball.
You hit the nail on the head when it comes to Plummer, because I've watched a good amount of Louisville this season. There's been times where I was like, damn, that was a really nice throw by Plummer. And then there's another, like the interception he threw in the red zone last week against NC State, where I was like, what on earth was that? So it's been a little bit up and down, but something I thought was pretty interesting was that Louisville has relied really heavily on play action this year. They've ran play action 38% of the time. They've had a lot of success with it so far. And why do you think that is? Why do you think that Brom wants to get Jack Plummer into play action to get the ball to his playmakers?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. So last weekend's NC State, they ran play action on 47% of their throws. So, yeah, I mean, that's a big number. And also, like you mentioned, when you give Plummer time, he can make throws down the field that look good. Like last week against NC State, he had 4 passes of 20 yards or more, and on those 4 passes, he had an NFL passer rating of 135. So, like, he looks good when you give him time. He has a big arm, and throwing the ball down the field, he's had a lot of success. But back to your initial question about the play action, I think a lot of what Jeff Brom's done in the past has been predicated on throwing the ball. He's kind of been a guy known to throw it more than he runs it. But so far at Louisville, it's been more balanced than what he did at Purdue and at WKU. It's been a lot more balanced. So I think when you have a running back like Jawar Jordan, I think Jeff Brom knows that this offense is going to hum as much as the run, plays off the pass and the pass plays off the run. So, I mean, it's all about just keeping the defense honest, and the play action when you have a running back like Jawar can just kind of get those linebackers to take a couple steps forward, and then you can hit them over the top. So I think the play action being worked into the offense this year is just kind of a sign of the running backs that he has, and that he feels like he needs to be more balanced at Louisville than he was at Purdue and at Western. And the run to pass percentage is just about even. And in the past, it's not been that way in a Jeff Brom offense. So I think really that kind of tells the tale of the play action is he's going to keep that run. He's going to keep that run very much in the game plan, and he's going to make you play, make a read on it. And there were times last week that I thought they were overdoing it with the play action. There was a 3rd and 5 that they ran play action, and Plummer got sacked, and it's like that's 1 or 2 seconds with the fake that you didn't need. But overall, I think it's just the running game's been a really big key to the offense, and they want to keep working that play action in there just to keep defenses honest.
All right, last question before we let you go. Can I get some predictions on Saturday?
Oh, man.
Put you on the spot here.
I'm sure you've seen the stat going around, and the spread, I believe, is down to 6. So I don't know if this game is going to fit the criteria, but Jeff Brom has been a 7+ point underdog, home underdog, twice in his coaching career. He's won outright both times. So as the spread is now down to 6, I don't know if this game's going to meet that criteria. But point being, Jeff Brom is a big game coach. I know, I think Notre Dame has a talent advantage. I think Notre Dame has a size advantage. I don't know that Notre Dame has the head coach advantage. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I think Marcus Freeman is a really bright young coach, but Jeff Brom is built for big games. He just is. And his Purdue knocked off Ohio State a couple of years ago. So what I'm getting at is I think Jeff Brom's had this game circled for a while. I'm not saying they've held anything back on offense, but I would be anticipating some gadget plays from Louisville. I think I think he's had some things in the works, setting things up for this game. Um, I just I just think with the crowd, with Brom, putting together a plan. I just don't see anywhere where Louisville get like. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think Notre Dame wins probably 27-21, something like that. I don't see this Louisville team rolling over at all. Like they've been down at halftime in 2 games. They've come back to win both of them, and both of those games have been on the road. So you can imagine if they're down a half at home, they're going to pin their ears back and come out firing. So I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think Notre Dame has too much size. I think the running back is just going to be a lot to deal with. I think Sam Hartman is much better than he showed a year ago here. I think Notre Dame wins. But I know that's a bland answer. But I do think Louisville will be ready. I think Jeff Brom will call a much better game than he did last week. And I think, this will be a game that if you're a Louisville fan that you'll look back on and be like, man, we had a full stadium. The fan base was on the same page, and that hasn't been the case really for the last 4 years. So either way, I think it'll be a fun night Saturday inside Illinois Stadium.
We're on the same page for the most part. I've got Notre Dame winning 24-20, so I think it's going to be a defensive battle. I think it's going to go down to the wire, and I think that Louisville is going to give Notre Dame everything they can handle. But I do think that eventually the talent will win out. But enjoy the game on Saturday, Ty. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and do this, man. So, enjoy the game, but not too much.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, man. It's going to be awesome Saturday. I mean, I think it's not going to be an SEC. You're not going to get the Southern hospitality, but I think if any Irish fans are listening, I think you'll have some fun at the tailgating scene in Louisville on Saturday. There'll be a lot to do and a lot of fun will be had. So if you're making a trip, definitely have some fun.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode, and that's another week of Locked On Irish in the books. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first listen of the day. I'll be back with you in a couple days to react to everything that happens in the game tomorrow. And before you get a head start in your weekend, be sure that you're subscribed to the show on YouTube or wherever you're listening to the pod, and follow the show on social media. Twitter account is @LockedOnIrish. Instagram is @LockedOnIrishPod. My personal Twitter account is @TylerWOJCIAK. Enjoy the game tomorrow, and go Irish.